Hello again, everybody. This is Tim Kaiser talking to you from the island of New Guinea. Like I've mentioned before in other videos, I don't like talking about things that other people are talking about. I only like to talk about new and interesting things. Um, I'm not so much interested in people liking my videos or subscribing or whatever. I just want to record the things that I've discovered. I mean, we never know when the last day of our life is going to be, so I've discovered some interesting things in my life, so I want to make sure that they're recorded. So, the thing I want to talk to you about today is about the oil and gas industry in this world, hydrocarbon industry in this world. Uh, what we were taught in school was that, hydrocarbon uh, is produced or whatever by dinosaur bones. What do they call it? Fossil fuels. Fossil fuels. That turns out not to be correct. It's not fossil fuels. Uh, there was I don't know this guy's name. I remember seeing this report some years back, a decade back, talking about this, and he was a Nobel uh, science winner in physics or something like that, and he started studying the the oil industry after he won the Nobel Prize in physics for whatever he did, and he theorized that hydrocarbon, oil and natural gas, is a naturally occurring substance in the earth. And his evidence for that is what happens to dry uh, oil wells once they become, well, if you cap them, you seal them off. After 50 to 100 years, uh, those oil wells will repressurize and they'll refill up. So he said, so that shows that the oil must be coming and the pressure must be coming from somewhere on the earth, in the earth. Of course, that was met with a lot of controversy and things, and I remember seeing that before I understood the things that I understood. So anyway, back in 2005, my family in New Guinea, the island of New Guinea, we're north of Australia. Look it up on the map. But anyway, because my mom is from New Guinea, my dad's American, and I basically grew up in America. So I was taken to America when I was very young. I was born in New Guinea, and I've lived most of my at that time I had lived most of my life in America. Uh, so I was contacted in 2005, in early 2005, and they were telling us about this. In fact, it was before that. We were talking about the oil, but they had found oil in our village, in our native land in New Guinea. So I didn't think much of it. They asked me for my details, the details of my family and stuff. So I gave all that stuff. And I thought, well, that'd be great if they do find something. Uh, that's good news. At least I'll get a little bit of money out of it. And I didn't really think much more of it than that. No, because I knew of course I've traveled back and forth to New Guinea, and of course I've been to my my tribe lands, and I could see that there was evidence of hydrocarbon. That was back in the 90s. Uh, but then it was in 2005. I was working as a security guard, uh, at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. Was, yeah, uh, I had been a soldier there, and then some years later, I became a security guard. We did some of the MP duties. We worked for the Department of Homeland Security and stuff like that. So there was a lot of uh, different people we work with. Most of them were ex-soldiers and stuff, or ex-police, retired police or soldiers. And there was a guy there. He was a retired soldier. His name was Al Sawi. He's from Samoa, and he had become a pastor, a prison minister with the Assemblies of God Church in Clarksville, Tennessee. And one day we were working together, and we were driving around in the ammunition dump. So it takes about an hour or two to drive around, check everything. So driving around a car, security. So we're telling stories and stuff. So I was telling him about Papua New Guinea. He was telling me about Samoa. And then all of a sudden, he just interrupts me and he says, "Hey, God is sending you. God just told me that He's sending you back to Papua New Guinea." And I was shocked by that, and I said, "Hey, listen, man. Your prayer antennas must be crisscrossed or something like that." And he said, "No, there's a work for you to do over there that only you can do. So you're still gonna have to go." Man, I just bought a house, man. I mean, it was my first house. It was a beautiful house in Tennessee. And all of a sudden, this prophecy came, and I really didn't want to believe it, but then everything ended up happening. And by the end of that year, I was back in Papua New Guinea. So I went back to the village, and I was thinking about starting some kind of fishing company. So I went and talked to my people about it, and they were in agreement about the fishing company. They thought it was a good idea, but everybody wanted to know about oil. And they started telling me this story, about they had found the source of all the oil, hydrocarbon in the world, you know, in our land. They told me that when we opened it, all of the other hydrocarbon reserves in the world would go dry, and I just couldn't believe that. I found it hard to believe. So anyway, they wanted to know everything about the oil industry, so I had some friends and I talked to them, explained everything, and I started investigating this. Could this be true? So I talked to a lot of different people in the government, people in the oil industry, and next thing you know, I found out it was true that the source of all of the hydrocarbon in the world had been found, you know, in my tribal lands in Papua New Guinea. Not only that, but the place that the oil will come out of uh, is in my land that belongs to my family, belonged to my great grandfather, and then my grandfather, who became my adopted father. And then I did some customary work for one of my uncles, and through that I ended up getting promoted to, you know, the chief or whatever, the boss of my tribe. And I also ended up, none of us really knew it, but I ended up acquiring the land where the oil is going to come out of. But I have to explain this. I want to explain this, everything that I found out about it. So first of all, I want to explain the hydrocarbon itself. If If you remember back in science, they talked about the unknown layer. If you look down into the earth, there's an unknown, supposedly unknown layer that surrounds the core. The core is iron, and there's this unknown layer. They don't know what it is. And then after the unknown layer, now it's uh, the rest of the different layers all the way up to the crust. Well, what I believe now, what the science of it or whatever is showing, is that the unknown layer is a layer of hydrocarbon plasma. Hydrocarbon plasma. So it's basically a hydrocarbon uh, layer surrounding the iron core that is that that insulates the iron core from the iron outside of the core, and this actually causes our electromagnetic field, and all the lightning and stuff that you see on our planet is caused by this. Okay, that hydrocarbon plasma is leaking out. It's leaking out, through those layers in the earth, and it's coming up underneath what's called the Sepik River, Sepik. You'll see that on the island of New Guinea. You'll see the Sepik River. Well, underneath the Sepik River, that's where this oil is coming up, and it's actually coming up directly under my land. But it's what they call the container. So all this hydrocarbon is coming up, and it's coming up into like what's like a container under the entire Sepik River basin, under the Sepik River. So if you look at the Sepik River, underneath that is all this oil. Now, the Germans were the one that originally found it, and they had projected that it was 6.8 trillion barrels of oil and 30 trillion cubic feet of natural gas. Okay, many oil companies have tried to drill into that basin, that oil deposit, but they have not been able to because it is covered by something that they can't drill through. And the thing that they can't drill through is uh, a diamond layer that is too thick. Diamonds are made out of hydrocarbon. Diamonds are made out of carbon or whatever, so that makes sense. So underneath the Sepik River, uh, is a stone, is a diamond layer that they've tried to drill through, but they can't. But that the diamond layer is cracked, so there's kerosene and natural gas leaking out. And now, because the pressure is increasing, there's oil leaking out. But they're leaking out in places that they can't drill because of this diamond layer. And this is all from a oil industry insider. He explained this. It was very, very interesting what he said. If you go down, you follow down to the mouth of the Sepik River, close to it, which is a place called the Murik Lakes. That's where I'm from. That's where my tribe's from. Uh, there's a natural hole that goes through the diamond layer down to the oil. They've wanted to drill that hole for some time, but one of my tribesmen, a guy named Sir Michael Somari, Grand Chief Sir Michael Somari, he was the founding father of the independent state of Papua New Guinea. He had blocked for decades, he had blocked any oil company from going inside of our territory and drilling inside of there. Okay, at the same time that I got sent over, and I was told in this prophecy that there was a work for me to do in New Guinea that no one else would be able to do. I didn't, but it wasn't told to me what that work was. So anyway, I came, and as soon as I came, they were talking about opening this oil up. So Michael Somari had decided that he wanted to open up this oil. So, but he was telling everybody that we had to leave, because worried about natural disasters or climate change, sea levels rising, and all this type of stuff. Whatever. So my people asked me. They said, do you guys should we leave? And I said, leaving is not a good idea until we set the deal, set the contracts or whatever on this oil. I mean, if we leave, they may call this place no man's land, or vacated land or abandoned land, and then we're going to be landless people, and somebody can come in from the back and claim the oil. But I said, but if you guys want to leave, go ahead, and I'll be the only one that's here. And then when the oil company comes, I'll tell them everybody else is left. I'm the only one. So anyway, my people decided to agree with me uh, instead of Michael Somari. And that caused all kinds of problems in my life, man. I mean, when Michael Somari found out, because he was the sitting prime minister at the time, if you can imagine that. Here I am, the security guard. I get sent over to Papua New Guinea by Pastor Al Saui of Samoa and his prophecy, and I get sent over there thinking I'm going to start a fishing company. And next thing I know, I get all caught up in this oil thing. And then, my people asked me, should we leave? And I just told them the truth. I said, no, we can't leave until, we set this oil deal. Anyway, when Michael Somari found out that the people weren't leaving, and then he asked who did it, and they said, oh, Timothy did it. The blame came on me, and then that's when my life got real bad. I got blacklisted and everything. They tried to deport me, all kinds of stuff, all kinds of stuff. But anyway, so it turns out to be true, and I just heard some guy on the news from the oil industry in America, and he said, it's an unlimited supply. They're talking about drilling up in Alaska or something. Yeah, that's if I don't open up my oil. So I've been trying. I've been wanting to open up my oil, but because of certain legal issues having to do with some illegal ways that this country was started without permission, and all of our resources were claimed. So I ended up having to battle against, legal battles against different oil companies. First one was Cheetah Oil Company, and I sent them letters, and they got dissolved. They dissolved themselves and recreated a new company, and then they sold their interest in my land. They sold to ExxonMobil, and so now I'm having problems with ExxonMobil again because they're still claiming ownership of that area, which is a huge human rights violation and all this type of stuff. But my people have said, hey, when are we going to open it? Because they know I'm the one that's stopping it. And I told them, I said, if it was a little bit of oil, we've already opened it. It wouldn't be a problem. But the problem is that it's way too big, and it's going to cause. Well, it's once we open it, all of the other hydrocarbon reserves in the world are going to go dry, and then we're going to have a hydrocarbon world monopoly. So that means that we're going to control all the hydrocarbon in the world. So that if anybody in this world wants to buy oil and gas, they're going to have to come to us. As a matter of fact, they're going to have to come to me because I'm the one who owns that hole, that area, that piece of land where that hole is, where all this hydrocarbon is going to come out of. and it's going to be over 100 million barrels a day. Probably 150 million or 200 million barrels a day is going to come out of this thing. So I've been talking about this for years. Uh, there's other parts of the story I don't want to get into in this video, but the point is that because of this, I'm probably the most famous non-famous person in the world. I mean, if you guys are watching me, it's just like the first time you've ever saw me, and thank you for watching. But you can name any leader in this world; they all know me. I'm definitely the most spied on man in the world. I have satellites watching me. People are watching me through my phone. Everything, continuously. Because technically, right now, I'm the richest man in this world. And so my plan is to open the oil, prove it, and then I'm going to open up a bank, create a currency, and then back that currency up with my oil. So I'm going to pre-sell a certain portion of my oil, about 20 quadrillion dollars US dollars, equivalent value, about 20 quadrillion US dollars in oil. I'm going to pre-sell it to my bank at a discount, and then my bank will, be able to print that much money, adding on the full cost and everything. So basically, the bank will control the sales. My personal bank, my personal money, my personal oil, because the oil belongs to me, and the bank will belong to me. And it's quadrillions, and that's just the start. I have an unlimited, something greater than the ocean full of oil left if I want to pre-sell some more oil to my bank again or whatever. So I technically have enough money, or I will have enough money to buy off everything in the world, everything that's for sale. And the world right now is going into, a bad financial cycle. We've overprinted money and things, and we're going to go into a very serious financial crisis. And they don't really have any more money to bail themselves out. So it looks like I'll be the guy that's going to bail everybody out. I I went to court about all this stuff, about the oil and everything, other things too, which I don't want to explain because it's going to make it too long. But I won that decision, and I've gone through the appeal process. The decision is a big decision because one of the things it's going to do is give me ownership, legal ownership of the oil. So I'll be able to open that up finally. And of course, that's going to have massive effects on the world economy. Good effects. Some of it I'm going to sell. I'm going to pre-sell. So I'm going to pre-sell, basically 100 million barrels a day to the bank. The rest of the oil I'm going to use for my own private use, which is going to be used to build a new world. To build a new world. To build a new. Anyway, that's for another video. So, but the point is that the interesting news is that all of the source of all the hydrocarbon in the world has been found. It's found in my land. I'm the owner of it, and I know I'm living in a makeshift house up on a mountain here in Guinea. But technically, I'm the richest man in this world. So that's it, and have a nice day.